This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSport Fan Network. TalkSport. Powered by fans.
Danilo is free. He goes to get wide. Edge of the box. Foley. Yes! Great goal! What a hit from Oliveira! It's wide! They've only gone and done it again! Forest back in the lead from Morgan Gibbs White! Oh, what he scores! And the City ground goes ballistic! Forest are Premier League!
Hello and welcome back to Red Side of the Trent, here to reflect on the 1-1 draw with Bournemouth after Chris Wood's opener is cancelled out by a rather fortunate and late Antoine Semenyo effort. Here to dissect the action are Reece Lane and Lee Clark as ever. No Christian Brown, but we will get some slept on it thoughts from Christian later on in the show. Lee, how are you first of all? You okay?
Yes, I'm very well, thank you.
Glad to be back at the City ground. Obviously, we all kind of congregated in the Trent Nav before pre-match. What was your thoughts and feelings on the day before obviously the game happened?
Yeah, it's good that football's back, isn't it? I think I, like many people, I suppose it's good for the mind as well as the soul. Even though it's Forest and it's emotional turmoil sometimes, it was good to be back. I think gone are the days where I care too much about the result these days. I tend to care more about what I'm going to be doing before and after the game. So, yeah, it's always nice to win, but it was a bonus to be back in the Trent Nav and soaking up the atmosphere pre-match.
Yeah. Reece, are you well this morning?
Yes, I'm good, mate. Are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Thoughts and feelings before the game? Was you
Yeah,
excited?
I'd imagine this is for most fans. Football's a social thing, isn't it? As much as obviously, a Forest thing as well. It's good to obviously see people you probably don't see as much without the football, and obviously, like you say, soak in the atmosphere, have a couple of beers, a bite to eat, and when it turns to 3:00, the day usually goes south. But that's a different story. But it was good. Yeah, it was good to be.
Yeah. So Lee, the lineup came out, and we was all debating who would partner Ibrahim Sangare. It was kind of all 100% certain that he would probably start. We wasn't actually knowing to before the game that Nikola Milenkovic was suspended for the game. So obviously Dan Taylor put out in the Athletic that it would be Willy Bolly partnering Murillo, and we was all a bit like, well, why? And then we found out a suspension from the Italian league crosses over into the Premier League, weirdly enough. But what was your thoughts on the starting lineup overall?
Yeah, I mean, I had a little smirk with our starting lineup, to be fair, all those that keep bashing us for not having a transfer strategy because, well, there wasn't a single new signing in the starting 11. I know that we keep saying that Sangare is going to be like a new signing, but he's not technically a new signing. So, yeah, it was quite interesting. It was good to see, to be honest. It was nice not to... I think for the first time on the opening day, it was a team that didn't look like it had been thrown together in 3 hours. It looked like a bit of continuity. And bizarrely, it kind of picked itself. I don't think no one was surprised. There wasn't a single surprise pick in there. The only surprise obviously came that Milenkovic was suspended. But I think a lot of the pre-match was around... I can't remember who it was that said it, but they said they'd seen a training game and Bolly had partnered Murillo. Obviously, now we know why, because Milenkovic was suspended. But yeah, it was just refreshing to see, like I said, continuity, players that we're familiar with, and more crucially, all our star players have remained. So yeah, I was pleased with the team.
Yeah, Reece, the game kind of started as you'd expect. The first game of the season, a bit tetchy, a bit kind of trying to find our bearings, but the game got sadly interrupted 10 minutes into it. Danilo and Antoine Semenyo going up for what seemed to be an innocuous kind of header. Danilo coming down, much worse of it. And it's obviously been now reported that he's broken his ankle. And we don't know how long he's going to be out for, but you imagine probably between 3 and 6 months or so. But heartbreaking, really, to start the game in that fashion, especially first game of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's not nice to see, is it? Wouldn't have been nice to see if it was a Bournemouth player, never mind one of our own players. Just such a shame, and you could just tell by the players' reaction it was a bad one. You could just tell it'd be some form of dislocation because, when players are putting their hands to their faces, and you could just tell by his obviously legs not in the place it should be. So, I mean, what can you say? I'm gutted for him because he's we've kind of got 5 people in that centre midfielder area, haven't we, who could all make a case for could play. Him and Sangai have got the shirt, and it's like it's yours to lose, and then within 10 minutes of the opening day, it's taken away from him in such a cruel way. But it's like Ryan Yates said after the game on the radio, it is part and parcel of football, isn't it, unfortunately? And it's just, we're probably not going to see him until next year now, because someone made a good point on Twitter. Forest probably won't register him for this half of the season for the squad because, even if it is at the earliest, Adam, of 3 months, it's still a big chunk of that first half of the season. So I do feel for him. I mean, it's nothing to do with Bournemouth's player as well, is it? It's just one of them unfortunate accidents. And the only disappointment for me was and this isn't a go at the linesman at all, it was a clear offside. The flag should have gone up, in my opinion, but it's just a stupid protocol that he's kept his flag down. And this is one of the things with VAR, isn't it? VAR was meant to be brought in. This is from the referees themselves as a tool to help the referees. Instead, it overrules the game in certain aspects, and it's just a simple flag should have gone up there, but because of this stupid protocol, it's been kept down. And then a few seconds later, that's happened. But yeah, just a real shame. And like you said, you just knew it was a bad one because of the players' reactions, unfortunately. And hopefully, he'll be better soon.
Yeah, I mean, 99 times out of 100, that would just be like kind of go up for a header, kind of might be I thought it was a clash of heads at first. And then when Gibbs White's put his head to his hand, you're like, oh,
yeah,
God, no, it's worse. It's worse.
I think that told you I think if it's a clash of heads, a bit of blood, and I think the players, but yeah, you could just tell something was abnormal, couldn't you, by the reaction? You just knew it was a shocker as soon as you seen the reaction, and your kind of eyes roll back into your head, and without swearing, thought, for goodness sake, not us again, is it?
I know, it's such a shame because I thought he started off quite brightly, Danilo, and he's looked good in
Well,
pre-season.
he's a player who needs a consistent run into, like we've said on the pod last season. He's starting every one of Nuno's wins, probably why he got the shirt, really. And that's happened. Just such an unfortunate shame.
Yeah, thankfully he's already commented on his Instagram saying that he's already back at home. So hopefully it was just kind of a clean break, and now it's probably been put back in kind of in some way cast, and he's just resting up now.
Yeah,
and
I think a few people said they're going to have to probably wait until the swelling goes down before they can do any kind of operation or anything. So that's probably why he's been sent home. And we'll see what happens.
And then, unfortunately, whilst that was also going on, someone in the lower Clufford seemed to need medical attention. But luckily, that's also on Twitter. Someone else has cleared that up. Someone's mum, I think it was, that had fainted. And luckily, staff amongst the City ground have kind of seen to that. And they're also on the road to recovery. So thankfully, that's also been cleared up as well. So, yeah, Yates came on for Danilo, Lee, and actually looks incredibly bright. Obviously, when you've got a Ryan Yates breathing down your neck, you're never too comfortable in a Forest shirt or an opposition shirt, thankfully. And I thought Forest actually took quite good control of the game. We got the lead through Chris Wood, courtesy of a Yates shot on goal. Lee, thoughts on the goal? Any commentary, thoughts? I don't even know what I'm saying. You're on mute, mate.
Take myself off mute. It was hideous goalkeeping, wasn't it? Let's be honest. Took me back to my unfortunate days as a keeper in the Sunday League. It was that bad. I mean, it was straight down his throat. He should be. I mean, it was, whether that's first game rustiness, I'm not sure, but a keeper of his experience should be holding that. Good play from Yates. I'm sure we'll come on to his performance later. But he was good. It was a nice, tidy finish. I think Wood actually did quite well to stay on side. You always ask your striker to follow it in if in the event that the keeper does spill it. So, it was a nice goal. It was opportunistic, shall we say? But he tucked it away nicely.
Yeah, I mean, Reece, I don't know what you think, but I thought Forest really controlled the game first half. I mean, there was a lot of good intricate playing, maybe a little bit too much at times, but I thought generally Forest looked pretty good in spells, and maybe maybe a little bit of fine tuning that needs happening going forward in that case.
Yeah, we was definitely better in the first half than was the second. I guess it was the old cliche, what you could kind of lean towards. It was a game of two halves. Thought they were the better side second half for sure. Yeah, we played some nice stuff. I said this to Christian at half time. You know, there was some clear patterns of play, and it was just kind of that probably for opening day rustiness what maybe cost us first half. Really, I mean, someone else had a shot, didn't it? What stung Neto's palms first half. Alanga, good strike, very good strike, hit it well. Neto made a good save. You could hear the acoustics from Upper Bridgeford of it hitting his glove. So, yeah, it was just the problem is with Forest, isn't it? Is when we get that first goal, it's can we go on and get a second? And a lot of the time, it's no, and that's the problem for us. And then the problem is when it gets late on in the game, as it did, we start holding on. Whereas we kind of need to, when we're on top, right, we've got that first goal. Now let's go on and get a second and put them really under pressure. But it's more of a case, and this is under Steve as well, it's always a case of like just holding on to that first goal. And yeah, I'm not going to go too much because we'll speak about the second half in a minute. But yeah, first half we did well. I mean, there's some good stuff. There's some rusty stuff as you'd expect from opening day. And you've got to also take into account, as we just said, after 10 minutes, the game plan's gone out the window, hasn't it? Your centre mid's come off with a broken ankle. You've changed your captain within 10 minutes. So I thought for us to produce that first half performance after what had happened, I thought was kudos to us. It's just a shame we couldn't get that second goal and take that into the second half, unfortunately.
Yeah, second half kind of in a similar start to the first half, where it was a little bit touchy, a bit scrappy. Unfortunately, Ola Aina, Anthony Langer both went off injured. Anderson and Toffolo come on in that sense, and then later on Dominguez come on for Callum Hudson-Odoi. A little bit strangely, I think, was the consensus from some supporters. Really, like, why did we not see Jota Silva or Eric Da Silva Moreira at right back? Because Nico Williams was, after his yellow card, or I thought was pretty good to start with, he was a bit of a walking red card at times, I thought.
Yeah, for me, I think the sub smacked of a manager trying to get minutes into players. I get the notion of, this is a weird one, I get the notion of taking Wood off because he's 32. And obviously, you just give you something a little bit different if you are going to boot it longer. Hassling the defenders, etc. But I don't know. We didn't really. To me, he only put a 1U on because he needs minutes. He's not played pre-season. He needed 20 minutes. It was a sub for the sake of a sub, I thought. And yeah, the others were a little bit bizarre. Obviously, Aina Toffolo was like for like. Anderson over Jota Silva out wide. I don't know. Are we already seeing that Anderson's going to have a bit of an identity crisis? Where does he actually play? Where should I say he can play anywhere, but where does he play where he's most effective for us? Would be the conundrum for the manager, I guess. But again, I think he threw him on to get him some minutes into his legs and have a look at him. Obviously, the first game of a Premier League season when you're 1-0 up is not an ideal time to be doing that sort of thing. So yeah, I do get the gripe with. I don't think there's any reason to go overboard with it, but I do kind of get the gripe with the subs. They did seem a little bit strange to me.
Yeah, I mean, I just the Williams one especially, because it seemed like Bournemouth really targeted it, and it was so unfortunate that Ola Aina went off. Not Ola Aina, Anthony Langer went off because Kirkesh was also on a booking, and I kind of thought, and I think all of us on this pod, Christian included, would all be like, right, get the ball to Elanga and just run at Kirkesh all game. And Elanga was really sharp, I thought, really, really good first half. I thought he was excellent, and then obviously the injury kind of happened, and then it just like every time Bournemouth got the chance, it was 1v1 Cliver or Sinistera v Nico Williams, and you could just tell he could not put a tackle in. I'm very shocked he didn't get sent off for the one where he made the challenge, I think, Lee, in the corner, and he could have got sent off for that. I don't know if you've seen it on Match of the Day as well, you, Reece, because me and you were at that end. I mean, he got quite
it wrong.
Didn't he?
He gave the corner, it got no in it, he didn't win the ball.
No, he got very lucky, I thought, Nico Williams. And I just thought, like, are you not throwing Moreira on because he's a young kid? I kind of think, like, you've included him in the first team. Like, you clearly think he's good enough.
I mean, Williams was never going to get sent off, was he? Because Lewis Cook committed 5 fouls yesterday before he'd even got cautioned. So, I mean, the referee set the tone with that. And I think Williams probably knew that he had a bit of credit in the locker. But yeah, you're right. The nature of the tackle, he probably was a little bit lucky to stay on the pitch.
Yeah, I think what the issue was that we brought 2 natural wide men off, and then we replaced them with 2 really centre mids, and we couldn't really get out. I thought bringing off Hudson-Odoi, I thought was vastly odd. You know, Alanga to be this WT analysis put this. A lot of our attacks came down that left side, so I didn't think Alanga was much in the game. We've got to kind of get him in the game more, really, Alanga, for me. But to bring them off and bring on 2 centre mids, I just thought that was a bit negative. And I get his point of view, Nuno. This is why we're crying out for these wingers. But when you've got Jota Silva sat on the bench, I know, and then now this is obviously spinning into the narrative of he's going to go out on loan to Olympiacos. Well, that's just bloody ridiculous, isn't it? If that is the case, we can't bring him on because he's going to go on loan to Olympiacos. You know, we're in the Premier League here. We've got to think about ourselves, not what, with respect to team in Greece, is doing. I know we're linked, but yeah, and that's why we've come. And you look at their subs. They brought on Kluivert, who they got the ball to him every time. They caused so many problems down that right side because they knew we had a fullback on a yellow card who can be at times a little erratic, as you saw with this sliding in, and they targeted. And what a surprise! A goal came from down that side.
Yeah, I mean, Reece, we may as well kind of stick with that because it's probably like the conclusion of the game in itself. But I think there's a few things that we could have done. I mean, it's really fortunate to have how Toffolo clears the ball onto Murillo and it's fallen to Antoine Semenyo. But I think we could stop the source personally. I think Sangare, you can clearly tell he's maybe a little bit tired, and maybe the run off Williams' back could be stopped. Ryan Christie putting the ball in, but. Yeah, just you can tell Nico Williams can't get touch tight really initially anyway.
Well, something we haven't mentioned yet is the offside goal in the first half, which we
got completely
got away with that because that was far too easy. And then it was an absolute scramble in the box, and they've scrambled it in, and we've not been able to scramble it away. Very similar to the goal what actually did count in terms of a ball across the box. Yeah, see. We'll talk more about Sangare later, but I thought he probably is one that should have come off. That's where I'd like Dominguez to come into that centre midfield role because he gives loads of energy, and he was blowing a bit Sangare towards the end, which you can understand because last season, obviously, it didn't work out for him. You know, he had issues with malaria and AFCON, etc. This is probably his first Premier League game in terms of like as a new man, let's say. and I thought he was, struggling a little bit. He probably could have got that energy in the centre midfield, brought him off, and he's a yard behind Christie when the ball's popped down the line because Dominguez and Williams are covering off. I'm guessing it's Kluivert. The ball's then put across, and I'll give Ryan Christie due. It's a great ball. It's into that corridor of uncertainty, as they call it, and then again, it's a scramble, isn't it? It's a poor clearance from me for Toffolo. It is unlucky, but he's just clear it back the way it come. Don't clear it through a crowded box, and then it just falls there. Plenty. He couldn't miss, could he, Semenyo, really? But it was coming because of them subs to me. In the ground, you just always felt that they, without making many chances, I don't think Sells really had a save to make.
No,
you just thought the pressure was going to tell that they get a chance, that they get a lucky break, and they did. And they scored from it. And to be honest, then, in the ground with 5 minutes to go, you thought, these are going to win this. And they nearly did. If it wasn't for Murillo, with a brilliant clear, another great ball across the box. So it's an issue like, again, WT analysis put about a set piece structure. He thinks it's going to be far too easy for us to get undone from set pieces. And we was lucky with one. We didn't get undone yesterday, but a ball into the box again has been our undoing, unfortunately. And yeah, just frustrating. I'm not going to go too over the top because it's opening day, but on the basis of the game, it was probably a fair result. But from our perspective, if we're going to improve as a Premier League team, those are the games yesterday. You need to be seeing the game out. not conceding so much as we did.
Especially if we want to compete in that middle pack of the table where Bournemouth finished last season. So it is. Leo, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, it might be unpopular and it doesn't make great podcast material, but I genuinely just think it's really unlucky. I mean, look at the goal we scored. The Bournemouth player goes to smack it clear and it hits another Bournemouth player and goes straight into our path. I get the argument he could clear it in a different direction. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I just don't think there's any. The one thing for me,
it a bit, to be honest.
Yeah, I just think it's really unlucky. I just think it's so unlucky. I just think he goes to smack it clear. He does that 9 other times this season, and it ends up in the top of the Brian Clough. I just think it's so unlucky. I don't know if that's just me. I don't think it needs over analysis. I just think it's a weird game where 2 goals have been scored, and you've got the defensive team almost doing exactly the same thing that's led to the goal. I get the argument about the source. Obviously, as a child, you're taught stop the source, stop the cross, you stop the goal. But yeah, we've just discussed Williams, and he couldn't really afford to be diving in or anything like that. But yeah, I just think it's one of them goals that it's just really, really unfortunate.
It is unlucky, but I think when Toff watches that back, he'll probably kick himself a little bit. I think is probably the best way to describe it in the line. I think he'll think, oh, but what is she doing in football?
Yeah,
but,
I mean, I could see. No offense to Harry Toffolo, because he's a bit of a fan favourite because of like what he's been through and what he's done in the community and everything else. And he is an okay footballer. He's a good backup to have and good person to have amongst the squad. But you can see why we do want another left back potentially. But yeah.
Because as well, Aina doesn't seem to do 90 minutes, does he? That's the problem.
Either.
Yeah, that's the problem. What did he come off? I say 52, I think it was.
Yeah. Again, without being disrespectful to Aina, we had a conversation in the first half about how utterly brilliant Aina is and what a signing he's been for us. But the reason we got him on a free transfer is because he seemingly can't stay fit. Yeah. He just picks up loads of niggles.
He can only do an hour, and that is a problem in itself. And like you said, Adam, that's probably why we want another left back. With obviously Moreno from Villa looked like he's coming in.
Yeah, I mean, I think afterwards both sides had chances to win the game. I thought Gibbs White had a terrific challenge made on him inside the penalty area from Bournemouth player. I'm not sure who it was exactly. Obviously, I only had the header straight at Neto, unfortunately. But I do think like Neto probably had to work a little bit harder than Sells. I mean, on the goal, Sells gets a hand to it, so he's a bit unfortunate in that. But do you both think it's a fair result overall? Start with you, Reese.
Yeah, like I said in my last comment, over the basis of the game, probably. But like you said, Adam, Neto was the busier keeper. I just thought they probably probed more, I'd say, would be the best expression. Without Sells having to do much. And it did become a game of 2 halves. But we've got to look at this from our perspective. And when you, with 5 minutes to go, 1-0 up at home against a side who you're looking probably to get above this season, got to be seeing that out, unfortunately. The positive I'll take from it is that when it did go 1-1, I certainly felt, as I'm sure others did, my heart was in my mouth that I was going to chuck it away, and that is a positive that we didn't. So, I guess the positive is as well, if we go to Southampton next week and beat them, and you take 4 points from you in 2, 1 away, 1 home, you'd probably take that. So, hopefully, we can do that.
The typical Forest PTSD of conceding a late goal.
When it went to cross, literally when Murillo cleared it, I said, "Oh, he's going to score." As soon as that ball went across, I just thought I was just going to tap this in, and then I would have been, I think, making an early exit if that hadn't happened.
Yeah, I think you and many others. Lee, overall, good result or fair result, should I say?
Yeah, I think it was overall. I think, again, I don't think it was the sort of game where I've seen all sorts of bits and bobs. My opinion is it wasn't the sort of game where we scored first and retreated. I think we had chances in the first half after we'd scored, and I just didn't see a performance where we kind of. People are saying, "Oh, it's Nuno ball, score first, then defend for 90 minutes." I genuinely didn't see that from the performance. I thought it was a game of 2 halves. I thought in the first half we played the football. I thought in the second half they did. I think one thing I said to my mate last night after the game was that if their disallowed goal had counted and it finished 1-1, I think it would have been easier to take. But the fact that their goal that they've actually scored came 4 minutes from the end, it does feel a little bit like 2 points lost rather than a point gained.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment personally. And I think what is to take into perspective is next week we'll have you'd hope Josta Silva's a little bit fitter from another week's worth of training. Might get, I don't know, a game behind closed doors or for the B team. You don't know. And obviously Ramon Sousa was paraded at half time after signing on Friday night very, very late whilst players were asleep, as Ryan Yates said after to BBC RNS. I think fair result in the end. I think when you look at the statistics from match of the day, I think both sides had like 14, 13 efforts on goal. I think the XG was pretty much similar. I thought Neto had to work hard. I mean, the volley header in the second half from Callum Hudson-Odoi's free kick was well saved. Good height for him, unfortunately for Bolly. But at least we didn't lose. I mean, that's an opening game we've lost the last 2 seasons, so it's an improvement already. And I'm kind of in your boat, Lee, about it. I thought it wasn't as negative as it may be, but the substitutions, I can kind of see where Reece and other fans have come from as well. We're putting round pegs in square holes in that instance. But for the audio listeners, there will be a short break before the slept on it thoughts are going to come in. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, they will be coming in literally in one moment.
Red side of the Trent. Slept on it thoughts.
Oliver Belson thought it was a decent display first half. We look strong going forward. Just need to work on that final product. Gutted about Danilo, but thought our defensive midfield looked strong. Aina also looks so good that I hope that isn't anything serious. Frank the Tank Williams is one of the worst defenders in this league. Going forward, he is okay, but defending is woeful. Forest started the same team that managed to get 17th last season in a weaker league, and someone thought that was a good idea. 17th will be a good season again. Not quite sure. It was a bit over-exaggerated there, Frank. Nigel Clough is the son of God. Gutted for Danilo. Hope it wasn't as bad as it looked. Business as usual otherwise. Not beating Bournemouth and Forest fans melting down on Twitter. Never change Reds. Sam, very strange subs. No idea what the game plan was second half. If we start trying to play tick-a-tacker on the edge of the box and just have a shot, we'll solve most of our problems. Mark Baker, thoughts with Danilo. I thought there were unforeseen injuries, but Nuno's game management is poor. His constant caution cost us last season and will again this. We desperately need new fullbacks as the weakest link in defence. Another centre-back, CM, winger and striker as well. Yummy Bear, frustrating as we felt we edged it on the balance of play. Neto was there, managed a match and kept the minute. Taking off our 2 wingers and not replacing them took away our threat. Hope Danilo is okay. Damon would have liked Anderson to replace Danilo, although Yates did have a decent game. Bit more guile in the middle of the park. Josta Silva and now Sousa, I thought were meant to allow us to keep that threat out wide. Nuno not convinced by Yotti need a striker. Capanosity. The more things change, the more they will stay the same. At least this wasn't a last-minute defeat. Well, Danilo's unfortunate absence being a last-minute bid for another midfielder. Those left-back and striker purchases are needed. Lewis Morris, decent for the majority of the game, especially first half. Lost the game when we took the wingers off. Lost our pace, width out wide. They double up on us and got in behind a lot. Lots of positives to take. Just a shame we've allowed them back in it. Hope Aina and Danilo are okay. Grant Fellows looked to threat going forward, but still a little suspect at the back. Nico, lucky not to get a second yellow. Not sure what the deal with taking off wide players for more central midfielders is. We lost any real threat when that change was made. Hope Danilo isn't too bad. Last of all, but no means least, Premier Elliott. You lot are spot on about Sangari. I'm very impressed again with him today. Lady luck on Bournemouth side again. Today's fact is... terrible, knowing a terrible film, Arnold Schwarzenegger tricked Sylvester Stallone into making Stop or My Mum Will Shoot. So thank you very much for Elliot, and good to see you again at the Trent Nav. Good for a fact as well, obviously. Enjoy that. Lots of obviously well wishes for Danilo, as usual. Player performances, guys. Lee, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to start with Ibrahim Sangare, as obviously a lot of pressure on him for a second coming for the season. What did you make of his performance?
Yeah, very good. Most tackles, most interceptions, won possession back more than any other player on the pitch. That is exactly why we parted with 30 million for Sangare. I get that occasionally we'll lose the ball. I think a lot of that is because he often... When he loses it, he's trying to kind of pick out a bit of a more adventurous pass, I find. When he plays the simple stuff, he tends to find his target. Yeah, I think people have got to realise that just because we paid 30 million for him, it doesn't mean that he's going to start scoring hat-tricks and taking 5 players on and doing Panenkas and doing keepy-uppies in the middle of the pitch. He's there to break things up. He's there to win tackles. And yesterday he did that with absolute aplomb. Yeah, very good.
I find like it was a good performance to build on for him. He will only get better, and I think even some of his simpler passes are still take players out of the games in some sense. He likes a good one time pass sort of thing, and I think we'll start to see more from him as the season goes on. I believe I've just got this really good feeling about him. Ryan Yates, who came on to replace Danilo, and I thought arguably his best performance in a Forest shirt since promotion.
Yeah, he played well. I think with the fact that him and Sangare was a centre midfield too in the end, which it isn't for me. I just think they're a bit too similar personally. I'd like to see kind of that. I go back to the Championship where you had Yatesy in there who'd be an Igley type of player, and then you had James Garner who could get forward, drive with the ball. But Yates took that mantle to drive forward with the ball, and he did that really well. Obviously, played a hand in the first goal, got a good shot away. Neto, as Lee said, should have done better, but he's made a chance, and Chris Wood was alive to it. He had another shot in the second half, what stung Neto's palms, although he probably, I think, should have played it on the overlap. I think it was Toffolo coming on the overlap. But yeah, I thought he played well. It was nice to see these, driving forward runs, something we've not seen before, and something that we've probably advocated for, because he needs to. What I do like about Ryan Yates is he'll kind of go away every summer and look at himself and think, where can I kind of improve? And you saw that yesterday with him doing that. It's something, if he's going to maybe get, I don't know, a few goals this season more than one, he needs to probably get himself into the box more, needs to be better from set pieces, etc. So that was nice to see. You always get the flops, don't you? Which I did. The one I did enjoy was Alex Scott, who went down like a sack of something in the first half and then jumped straight back up. Well, Yates did that back to him, and he had a right moan at the referee for it, which I enjoyed. But yeah, he come on and did well, Yates. To obviously come on in such upsetting circumstances. I thought he played well yesterday. I thought pretty much the whole team in some aspects played well, and in other aspects was a bit rusty. I think it was probably a performance of 6 or 7 out of 10 yesterday. No one was, I'd say, unbelievable. No one was poor. I thought it was probably a typical opening day performance. And like you said, Adam, with Sangare, a platform for a lot of players really to build upon, and hopefully we'll start next Saturday. Yeah,
I mean, I've got a question actually for both of you before I do the next player performance. Do you think is that Yates starting next week at Southampton? Would you say? Start with you, Reece.
Well, you'd imagine so, wouldn't you? Because, like I say, he played well. As much as that isn't my centre midfield too, I think it's Yates or Sangare personally. If you're going to play them in there, not both of them together. But you'd imagine after yesterday, that probably would be the centre midfield too. Yeah.
Lee, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think the biggest compliment I can give Yates yesterday was we saw firsthand last season that Yates and Sangare didn't really work, but Yates actually came on and realised that he needed to bring something different to the party. And I thought it was definitely his best performance in the Premier League for us, I thought, yesterday, which is bizarre considering he wasn't even picked to start. But I just felt that from the moment he came on, he had a realisation that he was going to actually have to offer something a little bit different than just being a knock. He needed to fill the Danilo role and fill it in such a way that he was getting forward a bit more. The one thing I would say is you could tell he's not quite au fait with that role just yet, for the simple reason that one of the guys I was watching the game with made this comment, that he gets into really good areas and he'll drive into a good area, and just when he needs to lay it off to one of the wingers, he'll pause and he cuts back on himself. If he cuts that out, we can start to really consider him a box-to-box midfielder. But I think that's just, it's because he's not used to doing it. He's usually tasked with being the narc, as Jamie Carragher called him, the nuisance that's breaking things up. But when Sangare's on the pitch, he's got to offer something a bit different. And I think yesterday he did that really well. So the more he plays with Sangare, he would, in theory, get better at doing the stuff in the final third for me.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I think that's very good analysis from Lee. Like I just said, if it is to be them two next week, it's something that you can hope Yatesy, as he goes on, will improve it. I agree with Lee. He does that really drive and run, and then he kind of, when he gets to the edge of the box, it's like, what do I do now? Whereas, because obviously like Morgan Gibbs-White plays in that position, you'll see him drive and then he'll lay it off. Whereas like Yatesy, because he's not used to doing that, he kind of gets that position, stops, and like, well, what do I do now? That's like
it's a weird one.
That's why I said
Yates,
it's like
he's better when he's got less options. Sorry, Reece. It's like he's better when he's got less options. When he's just got one option to pass, he does it brilliantly. But when he gets, obviously being that box to box, he's going to have 2 or 3 options. And like Reece has just said, that's when he has to stop and think, oh, which one's the right one? Well, I mean, you've kind of done your role then as the midfielder. Whichever one you make, you're giving it to someone who is, in theory, if it's Elanga, he's capable of skipping past someone. If it's Hudson-Odoi, he's capable. Gibbs-White might try and play it through to the striker. So he probably needs to worry less about that. The more options he's got, the better. Just pick one and then get back into your position, I suppose.
If he obviously plays and gets used to that role more, that's something you'd hope he'd improve on. But he was in with us in the conversation for man of the match for us yesterday, for me. Definitely in the conversation. I thought he'd play well.
I think one thing I would like him to do a bit more, and it was something he was really good at in the Championship because of him playing next to James Garner, was if he can lay the ball out wide, get himself in the box, because he's a big lad. He was a bit of a magnet to a ball in the Championship in terms of heading, and we know what he is a bit of a goal threat. He just sometimes his finishing is a bit suspect.
Well, him and Garner was the combination, wasn't it, in the Championship? I think they got half a dozen goals, was it, between them, assists to goal, him and Yates. So, yeah.
So, I'd just like him to get, if he gets the ball out to Elanga or Hudson-Odoi, just get in the box, mate, because you've got Sangare as your protection behind you. So, I'd just like him to get in the box a bit more, though, some of them late runs. But really good performance, I thought, from Yates. No complaints from myself either. Lee, I'm going to give you the second player is going to be Murillo, who obviously pre-season looked awful, to say the least. But yesterday, I thought back to his usual self, considering his best mate at the club has suffered a really, really bad injury. I thought he got over that pretty quickly and really established himself as what he was last season, really, which is a beast. Yeah,
very good again. Toss a coin and it's him or Sangare for man of the match for me. I think Yates was in the conversation as well. But he was just back to his effortless best, wasn't he? I think he's a young player still. He's going to make mistakes, and he has made some. But yesterday, he was just really good again. The last-ditch tackle at the end was excellent because I think it was Sinistero would have had a tap in if he'd not been there. So, he was good. It was a weird one because I don't think anyone really... Man of the match was a tough pick, I thought, from a 1-1 draw because no one really... no one did something amazing. There was, like Reece has already said, there was probably quite a few 7 out of 10s where people did stuff well and did stuff wrong. But Murillo probably just about, kept on the side of doing minimal things wrong. So he was good. Maybe he's just one of these players that can only get himself up for competitive fixtures. Perhaps that's why he was toying with everyone in pre-season a little bit. But hopefully we can keep him, because he's a real asset to us.
Yeah. Reece, last of all, a bit of a different kind of spin, but I think because of what was the general consensus online, I've given you Nuno Espirito Santo.
Just before we talk about it, ain't it weird, football, because I see people on Twitter yesterday, fans on Twitter saying Murillo was poor, I see people saying Sangare was poor, and then we're coming on this fan and saying it was good. So I gave them opinions, Nuno. Like I said, first half, I thought we played well. There's plenty of promise first half. It was just the subs in the second half. The Aina had to come off, of course, because unfortunately can't do 90 minutes. Williams probably should have come off because when he was on that yellow, I just thought they targeted him. I think Sangare probably should have come off because he was starting to probably as well. He made an absolutely brilliant last-ditch tackle late on, but he was starting to, hit that red zone, they call it now, don't they? It's just a shame about them subs because they're just a little bit. There was a little bit of a manager that was kind of just clinging on, I thought, just for that 1-0. Whereas, like I said earlier, we've kind of got to take the mantle at home. When we go 1-0 up, I think, right, we need a second. And this has been how it had been in the Premier League, I think, from the off. Once we're 1-0 up at home, a lot of the time, it's like we're clinging on a little bit, especially late on, which is natural, but our aim is to get that second goal. And I just thought bringing Hudson-Odoi off, I just found that a bit odd because he's someone who can carry it out for you, and Adam Scott, their right back, didn't want to go near him all afternoon. I thought there was times when there was a lot of 50-50s and he backed off from him because he knew if he went in Scott and got it wrong, he'd either get booked or Hudson-Odoi go by him. So, I'm not. You've seen some stuff online, haven't we? People saying it's very early days. You've got to give the bloke a chance, haven't you? And what I will say for him is that, apart from Jota Silva on the bench, there isn't another natural winger on there. If he had Jota Silva and Sosa on the bench yesterday, let's say Sosa had signed 2 weeks before and he's not bringing him on, you're kind of asking that question a bit more, like what's going on, you know what I mean? So for that like swap. So hopefully, Silva and Sosa are going to be on the bench soon. And if he does want to change it after 60 minutes and bring Hudson-Odoi Elanga on, we can bring on 2 natural wingers on. So we can kind of keep that continuity of getting up the pitch. But it's early days. We'll have to see. The only, just the final thing on Nuno, with these opening 3 games before the international break, I think we do need to take a decent total from them. I'd say at the vast minimum, at the very, very minimum, 5 points. And I think anything under that would be a very disappointment. And then I think you'd start maybe, because this is what football is like days, the pressure might start setting in early on, because then you look after the break where you've got Liverpool away. I think it's then Brighton away, into probably 2 games where you're going to go away and think realistically, that they're both going to be favourites. And then it's kind of then putting pressure onto a game against Fulham at home, it is, I believe. So, yeah, we need to start. We need a good start before this first international break comes, and that is at the very minimum for me 5 points. But,
I mean,
we'll see.
I even thought not even putting Moreira on, who is actually a winger by trade.
Well, he would have come on for Williams for me. Because like I said, like me and you said, Adam, he was thankfully Michael Oliver, I thought, was inconsistent to say the least yesterday. And thankfully, he thought that was a corner rather than a foul. So would have given him a decision to make. Yeah,
well, because Moreira's come through at St. Pauli as a winger. I know he's played right wing back for the Germany youth side. So I just thought you could stick him on as well. Like, he's a big, powerful lad, but I'm not the manager, so
this is something Stuart Pearce says as well. With obviously Moreira being like a wing back, and I know it would be his first taste of Premier League football. Stuart Pearce says, as a fullback, your job is to obviously defend, but it's to also make your winger defend. Right, and put him in an uncomfortable position of making him to defend. Whereas when we didn't do that with Clive Ertz, he come on, he caused a lot of problems down that side, and a goal came from down that side, and very, very nearly a second goal nearly came down that side at the end. So, but it's early days, as I said.
Yeah, definitely fine tuning and something to build on at least. Right, chaps, Southampton next week. I've got a guest coming back who I spoke to in the first season that was in the Premier League last season in Ray Hunt. So I look forward to doing that. Thoughts on Southampton, Lee? What's your general feelings towards that? Obviously, they lost their opening game to Newcastle yesterday after, Newcastle going down to 10 men. I know you've watched Match Today this morning, a rather conspicuous sending off for Fabian Schär, with Brand Barrett Diaz is getting Oscars for that performance, I have to say. But what's your initial thoughts as this go to St. Mary's?
It wasn't a red card, was it? I think they both headbutted each other. That would have been interesting if they'd both been sent off. But yeah, I digress. I think looking at the highlights of their game yesterday, they did create a lot of chances, but obviously played a lot of the game against 10 men. So you would expect that, I suppose. Listen, they're a newly promoted side. I think it's a really unlucky time to be playing them, because their home fans are going to be still riding the crest of the wave of that playoff win, aren't they? It's the first game back in the Prem on home soil. Whoever was going to get sent there first, it's just an unfortunate time to be going there. But that said, it is another game that we can attack and be positive. The challenge for me, it sounds cliched, but it's stifling that crowd, because the crowd is going to be up for the first 20, 25 minutes. If they score in that period, then it could be a long afternoon. I just sense it could be that sort of day. If we can keep things nice and tight and possibly nick a goal ourselves, then it could be a different game, because all of a sudden the crowd goes flat. So, yeah, I think it's an interesting game. But yeah, I don't really know what to expect. Like I say, it's difficult because they did create lots of chances yesterday. But like I say, you would expect, it's like when we played City last year, they went down to 10 men. All of a sudden we got chances. So yeah, again, I think that you look at the squads on paper, you choose ours, but football doesn't work like that, does it, I suppose?
Would you change anything from yesterday's game in terms of formation or personnel, other than obviously Danilo?
Well, I mean, if you believe what you read, we're in the mix to sign Moreno from Villa, so you'd expect him to slot in if he signs. But no, otherwise, I think it'd be Yates in for Danilo. If Einer's fit, he probably does get the nod with the new guy if we sign a left back on the bench. But yeah, other than that, I genuinely think we're at the stage where our team at the minute picks itself. You've probably got to toss up with the strikers as well, depending on what sort of game it's going to be. But the other areas, they kind of just pick themselves at the minute.
Yeah. Reece, your thoughts for the game next week?
Yeah, well, I mean, Taro in his first season had Southampton's number, didn't he? Got 3 in 2 games, I believe it was, against.
Yeah,
Got the winner at St Mary's. I am going to disagree with Lee in a way, because I see Southampton as they're not like an Ipswich or us when we come up. They've been in the Premier League recently, so they've not got that. They've not had that long period out of the Premier League like us and Ipswich 20 odd years, where you proper built up with excitement for that first game. For them, they've only spent a season out of it, so they're probably used to this more than anything, really. So I wouldn't imagine the atmosphere to go absolutely ridiculous. Personally, I think, yeah, it'll go up naturally a bit because it's the first home game of the season, but I wouldn't expect it to be through the roof. I wouldn't say the most notorious fans are the Southampton as well. But and also another positive is yesterday, again, like Lee mentioned, Newcastle are a good side, but they've gone down to 10 men for quite a lot of that game, and Southampton failed to break them down and failed to score, and they've actually lost the game. You know, it was 0-0 with 10 men, wasn't it? And Newcastle took the lead. So I see that as a positive, personally, that they've not, yeah, they might have created a lot of chances, but, you know, they've failed to take any, and they've got a strike force at the minute who went down with Sheffield United last season. So, yeah, I mean, the Brereton one made me laugh because it was a red card, wasn't it? But bloody hell, that's how football has gone, isn't it? You have to go down that theatrical to get someone sent off. He hardly bloody touched him, but it's a game. It's a game where, you know, we've got to go there and think we can win the game, no doubt about it. Again, they're going to be another team who's probably going to be in that bottom, well, let's say bottom half. And and all them games when you're playing them teams, for me, home or away, you've got to look at going to try and win them. I think it's a game we can go there and not expect to win, but look for a win without a doubt. I mean, I'm not sure what the odds are with the bookies, but I'd imagine they're very similar in terms of both teams to win. So, yeah, it's a game I'd be looking at winning, to be honest, especially after yesterday, because the disappointment of yesterday's we didn't see it out, wore it, didn't we?
Yeah, I think with us having played a Russell Martin side in the Championship when he was with Swansea, I think what I think we can get a lot of joy out is our pressing and when to press, obviously, because Southampton will want to play out from the back. They got caught with it yesterday against 10 men, weirdly. Isak to Joel Linton is a good finish, and you're kind of thinking, well, we've worked a lot on our press game this season. I mean, we didn't go out and really press high against Bournemouth, but they've got a side where they've got 2 centre halves who can play out from the back. I thought Dean Huijsen was really impressive for them yesterday, and Zabania is a good player in this league, and they've got technical players. But with Southampton, they're going to have less play. Bednarak will not like playing out from the back one bit. I've watched him plenty of times.
That's where maybe Taro can come in, who's going to press a lot more than Chris Wood. You look at the central midfield position. Could Dominguez come in because he likes to press, doesn't he, and put them under pressure? Premier. I know Russell Martin likes his tippy tappy football in the Championship, and when it comes off, it is lovely to watch. But he's not done it in this league, obviously, because it's his first ever season. So we've got to put them under pressure. Let's hope he's distracted by Lucy Pinder before the game.
I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think I'll be interested to see how Nuno goes about it. I don't think Yates is a guaranteed starter next week, although he played well. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him start. It's just whether players have picked up niggles or anything like Alanga or Aina. But I expect probably an unchanged side from what come on after Danilo's injury. Personally, I think you'll probably see the inclusion of Sosa in the squad. So that'll be interesting, and hopefully, if it does come to it, where we have to maybe change our 2 wide players, that we actually replace them for other wide players, that'd be nice. But can I get a score off you, Lee Clark? You're on mute.
Let's have some early season positivity. I think we'll win. I'll go for 3-2. 3-2 Forest.
Oh my goodness, we're going to be on the right result of a 3-2, right end of it. Reese?
And I'll go one step further as well. I think we'll go 3-0 up in the game.
Oh, God. Why?
They'll be rubbing his hands together.
I'm going to have to put 20p on this, aren't I?
I'm going down next week. I don't know if I can live with that. 2-0 down and win 3-2. I can live with.
No, yeah. Well, yeah. I'm going to go for a win, and I think we'll win 2-1. I guess also Milenkovic could come in, couldn't he? I thought Bolly did well yesterday, aside from he's probably just lost another yard of pace, unfortunately. But I did think he played well. It just depends, can he kind of keep doing it every weekend? So Milenkovic might slot back in, but we'll see. But yeah, 2-1 Forest for me.
Any goal scorers are you having, both of you?
If Tyro plays, you'd fancy, like I said, that first season, he seemed to have Southampton's number, didn't he? So, let's go for my top scorer shout to score, Hudson-Odoi. I was disappointed, like I said earlier, to see him come off yesterday. So I would have liked him to play the 90th both. So we'll go for him and Tyro.
Yeah, Lee.
I'll go for just to bump a few more zeros on my stupid 20p bet I'm going to have. I'll go for Milenkovic, Hudson-Odoi, and Gibbs-White.
Blimey, right. Being as I'm going down, I think we'll win 3-1 personally. I think we'll catch him out in the press at least for 1 goal. And we'll score like one of these like goals where you watch it back and you go, how on earth have they done that and gave a goal away so sloppily? So yeah, I think that's what will happen, and we'll kind of like laugh because we'll be like, well, Russell Martin, right, what do you expect in a sense? So yeah, 3-1 I'm going to go for, and we'll kick off our season and hopefully start racking up the wins and getting up that league table. But yeah, everyone, thank you very much for joining us. Is there any other business, guys, just before we go? No,
I don't think so.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. Right, well, we'll catch you in the week for the fan preview with the Southampton fan. Peak of about 47, 48 people in the chat. So thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Come on, you Reds.